Yeah? Yeah, that is better, yeah. Okay, so I think, remember we talked about this precautions, which is droplets and contact and airborne. Now what actually happens when somebody is coughing, what people don't realize, when person is actually coughing, all the droplets fall mostly within 2 meters or 6 feet. And the large droplet, what actually happens, think about it for 1 minute. If I'm actually coughing and sneezing, I'm actually contaminating all the environment, isn't it? So when I'm contaminating the environment and when I'm touching it, then they're all on my hands. And I can transmit either to myself, yeah, or I can transmit to other patient. So can you see when you think of droplet, people think of mask, surgical mask. That's only important when I'm going to come to some patient in the close proximity, which is about 1 meter, for example. So can you see that when we talk of the SARS and Mercury virus and influenza and all this sort of thing, people think, give me respirator. No, it's all contact. It's all contact, you know what I mean? And it's all about hand hygiene. And people don't understand that, So droplet, mask. Airborne, respirator. That's what people think. Yeah? But it's all contact, I'm telling you. Contact is so important. So hand hygiene to me is really so crucial. Now, once I start talking and all this environment is contaminated, can you see all this contaminated here, around here? How often do you clean your area? Twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, wards, yeah? Now you can see it's not only the patient, but also the healthcare worker and the visitors who are coughing, yeah, and vomiting and doing, we have got outbreak because patients are coming or coughing with the norovirus and things like that. So remember, it's not the healthcare worker, it's the visitor as well, and we don't think of that, And because these poor people come from villages, you know what I mean, and they come 3, 4, you know what I mean, although you put it straight in time, but you feel sorry for them as well. But that's the reality you have to live with. So hand hygiene is important, remember. What I'm trying to say, droplet, all these precautions are important. So if you look at airborne, is measles, varicella zoster, and tuberculosis are the only 3 where you think need PPE. The other, there's a lot of plus minus. But people in Mercury and SARS and things like that, I need PPE, I need respirator things. Yes, but the evidence actually still we actually believe is all contact. And Saudi Arabia, this is what Mercury is all, and SARS is all contact. And this is the reason. So this is the reason I put this slide up, that when people are coughing and sneezing. Now if I sneeze, you are going to find particle light up in the whole corridor. Okay? And I'm going to talk about the particle dynamics in a minute, when we talk of PPE, to see how the particle, when the particles are out, what actually happened to the particle in terms of physical dynamics. Okay? And it's very interesting, to understand that. So the other thing, okay, so that's one thing. Second issue, we think that 30% people carry Staph aureus. I do not actually make big difference between Staph aureus and MRSA, okay? Because there is no evidence to actually show that MRSA are more pathogenic. They are difficult to treat, but they are no more pathogenic. In fact, there is one paper which was a very odd paper. It's just like when people actually are fat, then they become more prone to diseases, and they die quickly. Staph aureus, MRSA are like that. They become very greedy, and they start collecting. Okay, so they get very greedy, and on the plasmid, they start collecting all these antibiotic-resistant genes, and they become fat and they die quickly. Okay, so it seems to me that by collecting all the resistant gene and being Staph aureus being very greedy, they become unfit. Okay, so remember, Staph aureus is Staph aureus. Difference is difficult to treat in terms of ethnicity. They are very different altogether. Okay, so this is another thing. 30% people of us actually carrying Staph aureus in our nose. Okay. What is the carriage in our hand? 100%. So now you can see, even I'm not touching anything, but because I'm carrying in my nose, I'm actually having in my hand. So that's the second slide actually show you that if you are actually carrying in your nose, right, 100%, that means 30% population, so 30% people carry in their nose. That means the person who's carrying in their nose, can you see they are also carrying in their hand. So even though they're not touching, they are spreading this Staph aureus or MRSA or whatever it is. And this is the reason that the patient who are carrying Staph aureus, remember I've told you this morning, who are going for surgical, the infection are actually much higher on the patient who can, therefore you decolonize them. Okay, so that's the reason. But can you see the second reason is that even you're not touching the environment, then these people can actually spread it. Now I'm not going to go through about a Staph aureus and how they spread in terms of clouds, and a lot of experiment has been done. But if you've got any question, write it down. I'll explain in much more detail. So what actually happens, so you got now micro on your hand, and you pass it on to an individual. It could be your family member, it could be visitor, it could be anybody else. And then if you got MRSA, then they are on your hand without touching anything. And then your other microorganism, or Staph aureus, or any other organism in somebody's hand, which could be viruses, by shaking hand, okay? And then you have contaminated environment and contaminated equipment, okay, if you don't wash your hands. So can you see, hand washing is important in terms of touching the environment, but you don't have to really touch environment to get these things in your hand, because you don't know what you are carrying in your nose, isn't it? I've never been screened. So this is the important, hand hygiene is so important. People are coughing, spluttering, the environment is contaminated. So this is for your own protection, protection for your family, but also the protection for your patient as well. Okay, this is a study which I did and we published in General Hospital Infection Research. I actually took 50 mobile phones from the nurses and the doctors, and 2% were carrying Staph aureus, but some were actually carrying the fecal flora as well. Okay, interesting, isn't it? So there you are. Now these are their personal mobile phone. Okay, so this first study was published, and after the people have repeated in so many other countries. And then this actually made a very big headline in the national newspaper. And second project was actually to swab the phones, in the ward, which my chief executive said no, because we made a headline that in our hospital all the doctors are washing hands and things like that. So, okay, so why people don't wash hands? I'm going to go through this very quickly because we have a lot of things to cover. So no matter what you do, you have this compliance only 40%. Why? Because you can't see them. Okay, I wish the bacteria were like this. Because you can't see them, it's out of sight and it's out of mind. Okay, so that's one of the main you can't see. Second thing, you see, this is very important: self-protection versus patient protection. I can give you an example, and I've got loads of slides to show, but I don't have time. But I want to give you an example of SARS outbreak. Okay, in Hong Kong, SARS outbreak, 2 hospitals. Yeah. Then one hospital, they did teaching 10 minutes drop session, you know what I mean? And they did not have any SARS cross-infection. Other hospital, about 30-40%, and the microbiology was combined, was sacked by the Chinese government at that time. Okay, so it was really, really big issue. Anyway, so the bottom line, I think around here, I can tell you, if I actually tell you that if you are not going to wash your hand, and your children are going to get MERS-CoV and your wife is going to get MERS-CoV, I'm telling you, your compliance will be high. So in SARS outbreak during Hong Kong, the hand hygiene compliance was 100%. What is now? 40%. Okay? So can you see the problem is that when you think you are going to get it, I can tell you, there is a patient of Ebola, for example, over here. Everybody is looking for PPE, everybody washing their hand. Why? It is you are protecting. So the question we are asking, do we really care about the patient, the person is going to get it or not? I want to protect myself. So this is, whenever there is an outbreak, you know what I mean? The people just keep on washing their hand for self-protection, that I don't want to carry this to my home, kind of thing. So this is another reason, you know what I mean? And the other thing, you see, if I actually taste my contaminated hand, I don't see any problem, isn't it? I mean, the person is going to get infection or something, you know what I mean? It is not like giving atropine, isn't it? We all remember, as a doctor, remember the dose of all the atropine in the cardiac drug. Why? You know that if you're going to make an error in this one, you will see the patient die immediately in front of you. It does not actually happen with infection control. You contaminate a baby 3 days later, they're going to get septicemia, and you say it wasn't me, kind of thing. No blame culture, it was somebody else, and maybe it wasn't you, but somebody else, but you really don't know. You cannot trace them because the actions are not immediate. But if you actually mishandle the dose of a baby, then you see the consequence of the pediatrician instantly. And that's another thing. So these are the reasons, you know what I mean, of people don't know washing hands. Now, people always have something that I'm not washing because of this. Sometimes I think they are genuine. They are, okay? Because some of the hospitals we visited in which there is one nurse for 42 patients, right? Especially in Ebola outbreak, a lot of people have died. Nurses have died, doctors have died, you know what I mean? And they cannot recruit it. You know? So it's, sometimes it's a genuine issue. But these are the ones which are reported, you know what I mean, too busy, low risk, lack of role model, not thinking about it, skepticism, disagreement, you know, different recommendation, irritation. Some of them they are genuine, some of them they are not, okay? And I'm going to talk about skin irritation, which is a very important issue. And the glove use as well. That means if I'm actually wearing gloves, I'm protected, okay? So I normally say, look, you're not actually wearing condom, you're not protected, okay? So you are actually spreading infection, you know, with your contaminated hand everywhere else. And the reason is, will you actually do a PR examination without gloves? The answer is no, not really, isn't it? Now, that means when you wear a glove, your psyche is that you are wearing gloves, right? Now you're contaminating the part of the body which you would not convey with your bare hand. Then you're not taking it off and moving from patient to patient, yeah? Now, we did a study. We actually we took a swab from the keyboard and from the toilet seat. What did we found? The keyboard was 7 times more contaminated than the toilet seat. Okay, so why? Because the gloves and all bits and pieces. So people don't see because they are not physically there. So doctors are problem worldwide. No matter where we go, they simply don't want to do it. End of the story, you know what I mean? So how do we convince? Where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? This and that kind of thing. So male, female, working weekends, wearing gloves. So these are the most common. And this is actually based on the 17,000 study we did on different part of the world. And this is universal everywhere. Okay, in some culture, it's more than the other. Now in Geneva, they did a very interesting thing. If your hand hygiene compliance, you know, say for example, it's not good, they have a card, yeah? They have a card to swipe to get to the computer. And if they don't actually comply and they don't attend a session and things like that, the card will not work. You have to go and train yourself. So you can't access the computer. So there are actually, and in our hospital, if you are actually, they have to show compliance as a part of clinical appraisal to certify themselves to General Medical Council. So those issues are raised. So there are actually these things. They are good or bad. I'm not here to discuss, but I'm telling you, people have done lots of things. Okay, so I think these things are actually genuine sometimes, because sometimes they can't actually find things. They cannot find soap and water. They cannot find 3 things, you know what I mean? So either there is soap available, there is no water. The water is not available, you know, there's no hand iron material. And I think this is what I talk, no priority for hand hygiene, no sanction. So if I'm washing hand, there is no reward, okay? And if I'm not washing hand, there is no punishment for me as well. So people have applied it. And then second thing is the institution, is the culture of the institution. Because infection control, sometimes, I don't know about your part of the world, it sometimes sits on its own. It doesn't fit anywhere. So when your chief executive, when they're discussing in the board, they have all these patient safety issues, the error, you know what I mean, the high level meeting, how we can minimize it. It doesn't fit. So normally, to me, infection control is a safety issue, yeah? So it should be on the patient safety agenda. This is where we keep. So that means the chief executive and the board of the trustee, they get the report about the infections and all bits and pieces. So you have to actually make any effort to actually fit somewhere in your system, whatever it is. But it has to be raised at a high level, otherwise people will not do it. Now, this is semi-wise. Okay, you think it was difficult now? You see this picture, what is the difference between these two pictures? 3 years. So if you're really going to push it, you will age like this within 3 years. So it's not easy, I'm telling you, okay? So this is the reason most of my hairs are gray, okay? Okay, now the question is seat belt. People keep on asking seat belt, okay? Unless now everybody wears it. Why? Because it's a law now, okay? So there you are. You made it into law in UK. If I don't wear it, 80-pound fine. plus my license punched 3 times. 12 punching of license, I lose my license for 2 years. I can't drive car. Okay, so these are actually quite effective. Okay, so these so seat belt, and then you got car now. If you don't put it, it bleeds. You know what I mean? So we don't have these kind of things. So seat belt, I think it took about 10 years for them to actually, people are starting to wear it. Till they do this, then everybody start doing it. Surveillance and observation. Okay. Okay, I think this one, you're very clear about it, that we're talking of indication when you're doing it, but not the calculation based on the opportunity and not indication. Because there's a big confusion over there about this. So that means basically, if I'm touching her, and in between there is nothing there, then there are 2 indications after touching the patient and before touching the patient. Yeah, I have to wash only one. So there are 2 indications. The opportunity is only one. Okay, so when you're doing the observation, make sure you must do on opportunity and not indication. Okay, so this is important. Okay, I'm going to go through these 5 things. Remember, everything will be 5, 5, 5, 5. That's the way you have to remember it. We'll go through very quickly. The first, it has to be done. Now, how do you increase your compliance? Remember, I can't find it now. Some hospital will go over, and if I'm examining patient over here, there's only one secretary at the end. You think they are going to go over there? No, they are not. Okay. So the solution they found is merely. Now, this is what actually happens. Most of the hospitals, they have alcohol hand rub available at the point of care, or you can have a bottle in your pocket. Okay, because you can't put it everywhere else as well. So this, I think, is really, really very effective. Now, for this to actually happen, it's a lot of revenue for the hospital, right? So the question I think around here is the 2 practical issues you have to take into consideration. That the stuff you are buying has to be of quality and the quantity. And if you make it WHO, it's formula. We encourage you to make it. It's really cheap, and we provide support to that as well. And you can do it, like this is you can do it, when you've got highly trained people, highly intelligent people, they can do it. It's not a problem. Because we have done it in Ebola-affected country, in Pakistan, all this sort of thing. We have done it. It's not an issue. So, point of care. Now, this sometimes can cause problem. Say, for example, psychiatric patient. Sometimes they drink it. Okay, so you have to lock it. Second issue, I don't know about fire regulation, but if you actually stock it too much, there's issue about the fire hazard as well. So we run into all these hiccups and difficulties with that sort of issue. So therefore, people actually go for gel. So we'll talk about gel, rubs, and foam in a minute. So these are the practical issues. So we have got special drinking policy. Isopropyl alcohol is a petroleum product, okay? Ethanol is the proper alcohol, but people don't realize it. So things we were thinking were changing it. Why we can't say hand antiseptic, for example? Okay, then there's the issue in some Muslim countries in terms of using it. So we have to actually go to Saudi Arabia, and they're given a fatwa that it is fine to use as well. So we come across huge amount of problem, So these are the issues. But so now Muslim country have no problem at all. Okay. So in UK now, sometimes this developed country, there's an incident actually happened very recently. The girl was actually getting married, and suddenly the husband actually found out that the girl is a nurse, yeah, and using alcohol hand rub, and basically decided not to marry in UK, okay, because she's using alcohol hand rub. Now what's the issue? There's no issue because we've done a lot of study. Not a single molecule is absorbed from your hand. So we don't have a problem in Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and on all the world, but UK. Okay, so there are issues, and these are practical issues we have to deal with. So there are lots of papers we published on that as well. So point of case, these are issues. Okay, this is the way you make it. Okay, I'm not going to go through it. Okay, this is the one which we did in Pakistan because I have a head of the pilot site over there. So our main problem was getting the bottles and checking the alcohol type because we went for a cheaper option, and we have to test 3-4 times to get the right quality. You know what I mean? So you have to test it. You simply cannot just go on doing it, and we'll help you if you want to do it. And it's really, really very cheap. You know what I mean? Okay. Second thing is that 5 moments of hand hygiene. I think you all know it. Remember, patient zone. Where do you start and where do you end? Remember, this is a teaching concept. That this is the patient zone. Should it be over here or should it not be over here? In Italy, I can show you a slide where they actually put a red mark around it, in ICU especially, this patient zone or not. We also have published a separate guideline on WHO on hand hygiene, that in some area, like in Africa, the bed occupancy was approximately 350%. There were 2 patients in each bed, patient underneath the bed, patient in the corridor, okay? And you simply cannot send this patient back home, you know what I mean? They travel so far. So bed occupancy is a big issue. So we have published a guideline that what actually happens if you have 2 patients on the bed. So there in that book, okay? So I just want to tell you these are the practical issues which we come across. So this patient zone is basically 5 movement. So before patient contact, yeah, simple. Why? Because you may not have actually washed your hand before that. That's actually mainly there to protect the patient, yeah? Because your hands are contaminated, you're going to touch it, you're going to pass it on to that. The second one is before aseptic talk. This is for the protection of patient again. Protection of body fluid is basically your protection, yeah? Because the patient has got contaminated fluid, okay? You're protecting yourself. And you've got often patient contact, yeah, simple. And then the environment. Now, a couple of countries have taken the environment out completely, which is scared us, but anyway. See, we've got a lot of people who are coming over, putting jug of water, cleaning the whole thing, non-medical kind of stuff. Remember I've shown you a slide this morning from Lancet paper, that when you're actually there, that particular zone is contaminated, right? Patient is coughing and patient shedding all the bacteria. Even if not touching the patient, if I touch the environment, I'm contaminated. But one country I shall mention, they actually went for 4. 5 for them was too complicated, and they've taken this one out, okay? But I'm just giving the logical reason when we were thinking it. This took us quite a while for us to actually go for 5 movement. We could have 6 or we could have 4, you know what I mean? But we went for 5 is just because for you to remember 5 before you go. 5th of May, hand hygiene day, 5th of May, implementation. 5th of May to assessment to facility. 5th it's all 5, you know what I mean? Okay, hand rubbing with alcohol is preferred. So now I'm going to show you what actually happened if you use soap and water. So remember, one issue is about the quality and the quantity of water, which is a big issue everywhere. Okay? So you need drinking quality water to wash hand. That is not available everywhere. Okay. So you see, when we talk of WHO, we're talking of whole world, okay? So you may not have a problem, but other country may have a problem. Or if you go to small hospital in villages, they may not have it, you know what I mean? So we have issues, you know what I mean, in subcontinent. Okay, this slide is important because some people were asking in the lunchtime, what do you see from this slide? So this is, can you see, this is your hand washing, okay? And it takes about 1 minute, yeah, to actually get about 3 log reduction, yeah? And then it is sustained, okay, for whatever a minute. Now, will it sustain for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on the antiseptic you are using, okay, or soap you are using. This is just normal, ordinary, non-medicated soap. Medicated soap have no role, don't go near it. It has no effect at all, okay, so forget about it. Okay, it's total waste of time. So, 3 log reduction. What do you see over here? So alcohol, you can see about 3 log reduction. So if I ask you, and yesterday I think we were discussing about, what actually happens when the person actually goes over and wash the hand, but not really properly, yeah? Does not actually follow all the steps. That issue comes up again and again. So this slide is going to give you some kind of answer. What do you see of this slide? How much minimum really time you need to actually have contact of alcohol with your hands? What do you see from this one? Any volunteer? No? Huh? How many seconds? Maybe Let me explain. If you actually do hand washing, you see 3-log reduction, yeah? I'm now giving you the clue. If you do have contact with alcohol hand up for minimum period, yeah, before you say it is become effective, okay? How many seconds? Okay, actually it's 11 seconds. You know why? Can you see this one? So if you look at 3-log reduction, it comes at 11 seconds. So if actually alcohol hand up is not touching it less than 11 seconds, forget it. That's the minimum time you need. If you do more, then you see 5-log reduction. But what I'm trying to say that if it is less than 11 seconds, so 11 second 3-log reduction, which is equivalent to hand washing, yeah? If you want to have 2 more log reduction, then you have to go further, which is 15 to 20 seconds, okay? Or 30 seconds, whatever. So this slide is important, okay? So can you see at 30 seconds, in 1 minute, can you see the log reduction? But this is what we say, 30 seconds is fine, because you have enough log reduction. Now, one thing. Second thing, remember one thing. And we talk about hand hygiene demonstration in a minute, okay? Because, so keep that in mind, okay? Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. So, remember one thing, when the alcohol is dry, it is not effective. Okay? You have to remember the simple principle. It is not like chlorhexidine, okay? That it has no effect at all. So 11 seconds, alcohol is dry, alcohol stop being effective. What does it tell you? You really have to wet your hand, isn't it? For 30 seconds, your hand has to be wet. If it's dry at 11 seconds, so what happened? I was doing the seminar in Geneva, I think about 10 years ago, and there was a delegate from India as well, and he was actually telling me that one of the issues, not Indian delegate, but somebody else from a lot of, that alcohol is really very expensive. Okay, alcohol hand rub. So what actually happened, they tried to use minimum amount, yeah, to actually have more out of it. So we'll talk in a minute that how much you need it and what quantity you need it. So we'll talk about that. So can you see now that when I'm taking 11 seconds plus, okay, that means it's effective, but you have to a little bit longer. But that is only, your alcohol has to be wet. How do you know? Once it's dry, then you're okay. So it's more effective, better tolerated. Okay? And second thing, because it is an emollient. So what actually happened, it is an emollient, and I'm going to show you a couple of slides. It will basically will not dry your hand. Now, alcohol might be a microbiologist. Remember where we keep spores? Alcohol. Why? Because of drying effect. Why we get hangover when you drink? Because the brain is all dried up. Next morning you get hangover, right? So if you drink plenty of water, you will not get headache. You may get hangover, okay? It's just because alcohol dries everything. And one thing dries meninges. So drink plenty of water. And alcohol, spores, there we keep the organism, right? So this have got drying effect. And if you keep on using it on its own, it's going to wreck your skin. So you decide, are you going to wash your hand, or you are going to use alcohol? Don't use both. It's going to wreck your hand, and you get dermatitis very quickly. Okay, we've got crazy policies where they are using both, but anyway, there's another story. But what I'm saying, decide what you want to do, but try not to use both. You just decide what you want to do, but use it properly, because your hand will be wrecked. So, okay, yeah, 20 to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, okay, and you can see the graph. Yeah? So 20, I think, anybody after 20 is okay kind of thing, okay. And the other thing, we're actually saying you have to wash your hand when they're visibly soiled or when you're going to the toilet. Why? Why were you saying that? You know the answer, John? Yeah? Does it act on soil hand and spores and parasites? Yeah. So can you see it's got, because you have to physically wash your hand. Okay. So spores, fecal material, right? Organic matter, parasites, alcohol. So you have to wash your hand. Okay. So after going to the toilet, you have to wash your hand, basically. Okay. So this. See if I put it over here because we're out of block. Okay. Now, what actually happened? Let's actually talk of your hand. Remember one thing, you have to actually, whenever you do hand hygiene session, please do actually mention about the protection of your Can you hear me now? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So this is a very interesting slide. Remember, you are building a house. Okay? You are building a house with the bricks. So when you lay a brick, one brick with second brick, a third brick, how you are going to put first brick with the second brick to join together? Cement. Think as you're building a house with the cement. This is the electron microscope of your hand. So can you see these? These bits are all your epithelial, your squamous epithelial cell. And this is lipid layer. Lipid basically is actually sealing your squamous epithelial cell. Remember I talked about that if you put makeup and put emollient, your shedding will be much less. This is the reason. So what actually happened, that if you are using a lot of detergent, right, just like when you're washing your dishes, when you're using a lot of detergent, you see that your hand, this is the reason people wear gloves, yeah? It takes away all the lipid. It takes away all the lipid from corneum, the lipid is all lost, and the hand become very prickly, okay? So this is the reason we put emollient in the alcohol hand rub to seal it. So it's sealing it. It's just like putting a cement. So emollient, you think of cement. So every time when you wash the alcohol hand with good emollient, it keep on sealing it, and good quality, at the end of the give you a softer hand compared to hand washing, which does not have emollient. Yeah. So, okay. So this is what actually happened. Corneum. Okay. So can you see water is lost now? This is all gone. This is all lost, and you can see all the freckles around here. Now, when you put emollient, can you see the water is all now sealed? So you keep on sealing it with emollient all the time. So when you're actually purchasing the product, just make sure you got enough emollient. Second thing, you have 6-7 products. I mean, how do you know which one is going to work, which is not going to work? Yeah. Remember one thing. One of the major issue with non-compliance on hand hygiene is that people simply don't like the product. Okay. We don't take into consideration of the clinician, what they prefer. We just go for the cheaper option, which right. So I think user acceptability is a major issue, isn't it? If you don't like it, you will not use it. So I normally try, in our idea in WHO, we recommend that you try 2-3 products, whatever. In WHO, we have tried it, okay, tested in so many countries, it's fine. There are a couple of issues, but it's fine. They have no issue with that kind of thing. The emollient concentration is fine. So I think this is quite important, that you have to actually take into consideration the user acceptability. So I think continuous facilities, and then the drying facilities. So alcohol will take away that issues. But when you see, I mean, hand washing facilities are there, but I have very few countries where I visited where you find 3 things together because of stocking, I mean, you go to toilet now, you may actually find your soap is not there, or possibly the hand box is completely not filled. Now you are actually, this is a big hospital, right? Who's going to monitor all these other things? What happened over the weekend? So you don't have all these 3 stuff available. And this is an issue worldwide. Now, this slide I'm going to show you very especially for this part of the world, because we have got a huge problem with gram negatives, right? Multi-resistant gram negative. Sinks are the major culprit. In Northern Ireland, we lost 9 babies. Okay, there were outbreak. Yes, 9 units were lost because of sink. In there are major outbreak in Canada at the moment, and there are a couple of review papers as well. So, few things I'm going to mention. This is the take-home message, that you have to go back and review where the sinks are. This is the major problem, especially in neonates and high dependency units, burned units, the high risk unit, all of them, you know what I mean. So let me go through all this. This is the most important slide. So I'm going to go through very quickly. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures, you understand, because this itself is quite a big topic. So just want to make sure that size is actually enough, not too enough, because the location is important. So it does not splash, because water is contaminated, okay? Our water is contaminated, okay? It's not a sterile water. So when it actually creates aerosol, it goes into neonates, yeah, where the skin is just like mucous membrane. It goes into intensive care unit where they got lots of tubes, okay? And there's documented outbreak and deaths in Canada. Okay, I'll show you the paper in a minute. So these things are actually quite important now. So size is important. Hand hygiene product, you make sure that you have got everything available, okay? And everything is not available sometimes. So people actually do the shortcut. So if you do not have hand drying material, you are going to touch the babies with, or things, you know, with your wet hand, because you're not going to wait to air dry your hand. And then you must not use it for anything else. So people are washing their hand, and people are actually putting things, and people are actually cleaning the equipment. You go over and see it, you know. Installation, just make sure that it has got a splash guard. Otherwise, the fungi are going to grow at the back of it. And the tap has to be elbow operated. But I got very big. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So now, of course, you're not going to go over and change with the double tap elbow operated. So my recommendation is, which is there in the sink as well. So normally what I do, once you finish it, you use the paper towel to actually close it. Okay? So there is a very simple solution. It's just a matter of you teaching. It is important. Okay? Now, tap should not be aligned directly. This is the most dangerous thing you ever do. You've got all this U-bend, you know, swan-like neck. Now, major problem which we found was, you know, you got hot water and you got cold water, okay? In order to prevent Legionella, we have to increase the temperature of water, right? Which is Legionella. Microbiologists tell me how much you need to prevent it. 55, yeah? 25, 55, you know, at least. That water can become very hot, so you have to have what we call the mixer tap, which came from the country I don't want to mention, which is not very far from here, and was contaminated with Pseudomonas, and we have deaths of babies. Because the mixer taps have got this valve inside, which was contaminated, okay, which did not find out if you open the whole thing. Anyway, so these are the real issues. You know, sometimes when you investigate an outbreak, don't bash our clinician all the time. Sometimes these are the culprit. Okay, so can you see, you bend all bits and pieces. Plugs, if there are any plugs, remove it. They should not have, it should have free-flowing water. You should not have plugged it. So when I was appointed the consultant first week, when I went over, and I said, you know, I start seeing these plugs, you know what I mean, in my hospital in England. I said, why the plugs are there? So what actually happened, they put a plug in, then they fill the sink in. And then they put the sink in, they wash their face, and then shave, and they do everything in this dirty water. Which was, you know, to us, you know, in India, some kind of a concept is running water, isn't it? We wash it, it has to, but over there, no, it's still water, they virtually do the whole thing. So that was why I removed virtually all of those. So you should not have any. And you should not have any overflow. You know what the overflows are? It basically, it's a tube which goes inside and fill up the sink. It's just like another taps. So this is the outbreak in Canada, okay? And you go over and you look at Northern Ireland, and now our hospital in Northern Ireland had been sued by the police for manslaughter as a criminal offense to the hospital. So the public is taking us to the court, yeah, that we have killed this baby, just like we have literally created murder. So over there, it's a huge issue, you know, this is, you know, now, bacteremia, septicemia, unheard of, you know what I mean, but to bacteria, total amount of bacteremia the liver patient got in the UK is about 6, special inquiry set on that. That person coming from mother simply cannot have bacteremia, you know what I mean. So our thresholds are really, really very high, you know what I mean. And there's accountability as well on this one. Okay. So what actually happens, so this is the pin. So what actually happens, can you see this bit directly under this one? So this actually creates a splash. So design of sink is very important. So can you see what's Ganj and muck over here in this S-bend? He's spraying water everywhere. This happened in Canada, this happened in Northern Ireland, and also lots of other outbreaks. There's a very interesting review, I can email you, very interesting review about the sink and the whole thing. So if the sink location is very near to the patient, yeah, then the aerosol is going to spread on the patient environment, especially in high dependency unit. And can you see this one? Yeah, we talked about. Now sometimes the sinks are actually there. Now this is hospital, patient bed, patient sits over there. Who's going to wash hand over there? You think clinicians are going to go over at the back of it? No. Here, this is a slide I took. The person is actually pouring all the fluids over here. Okay. So can you see this area is completely contaminated? This one, the person is actually washing the face mask. And this is a slide I took. 17 death of the babies in one. And I was at the airport in that country, I don't want to mention the name. And somebody came over and said it was 17 deaths. And I went over. You know what intervention was? Two things I only did. I went over and removed this towel, okay? And the second thing, what they were doing, they were preparing all the TP and everything next to the sink. Two intervention, outbreak stopped. 17 baby, all kids that died of Klebsiella. Okay. So simple interventions, this is not rocket science, I'm telling you. But these are things you go over and see it everywhere. Okay, this is the report. I think it's worth reading it to see what happened, you know, in our part of the world where resource is not an issue, I'm telling you, okay? Okay, so we're coming to hand washing in a minute. So I think wedding rings, jewelry and bracelet, how many bacteria you are going to get under the wedding ring? Do you know that? We've got population of Europe is about 250 million, exactly that amount of bacteria. So if you take your ring and culture it, give it to microbiologists, if you're a microbiologist, culture it, it's about 250 million bacteria you're going to get under your wedding ring. So the idea is that in UK we've got big issue. People don't want to actually, we've got very high divorce rate, but people don't want to take out the wedding ring. So idea is to lift it, clean it, when you're washing your hand and put it back. Ideally, they should not be wearing it. And of course, issue with nail polish, yeah. There are documented outbreak with nail polish, false nail, big issue, and brushes. So these are all no. Okay, so I think now we will have a small demonstration. So 3 questions I'm going to answer, which have been asked. How much you need it, right? The concentration, everything. So it seems to me that any alcohol product which you buy, just make sure the content has to be 70 to 80%, depending on the type of alcohol. So there are 3-4 types of alcohol: isopropyl, ethanol, and propanol. And propanol, I think, is not used a lot, but people are making it. So those are all fine. But as far as you know the concentration, the most commonly used are isopropyl and ethanol. So how much you need? You need at least 3 ml to cover all parts of your hand. Why? Why? Because remember I've told you that in order to actually get this 3-4 log reduction, your hand has to be wet, yeah? Your hand has to be wet, and it will not be wet because of now, how do you know? I'm a big person and somebody is very small. So how do I know? So normally you say palmful. So it could be 2 ml, you know, because if you're a small sized person, it could be 2 ml or it could be 3 ml. But 3 ml is recommended approximately, okay? And that whole idea is about alcohol covering all parts of hand and keeping it wet. So there are 2 purposes. Okay, rubs are actually better than gel, and foam, we don't have enough data on the foam, how effective it is, but foam is used a lot in Europe, okay? And the correct technique. So I think what we are going to do, we can actually, can somebody want to come over and demonstrate how they want to wash their hand? Disinfect their hand? Can somebody come over and say how? Somebody, do you have alcohol hand? I have it. I have it. I've got these two products. I'm not promoting anything. These are the only one which I have it. And when I travel it, I actually use it a lot kind of thing. Okay, so I'm not promoting anything. What I'm saying, the one is you have a liquid, and the other one is alcohol gel. Now, so I just tell you advantage of those. The rubs are actually better than this one in terms of efficacy-wise, but gel, I think now actually are coming to the market, which have got very good efficacy as well. So just want to make sure that you want to get the right data. That's the one thing. Second thing is that with alcohol hand rub, sometimes because people drink it, so you have to go for the gel in psychiatric ward and things like that, okay? You may not have an issue, but in a lot of countries, it has an issue. Third thing with gel is sometimes it gets very sticky, and people don't like it. So the user's availability quite important. Now this is a very interesting product, which I saw just last year, that although it's the gel,
palm to palm, back to palm, both sides, palm to palm, fingers interlacing. Try. Okay. After taking hand rub, palm to palm, back to palm, both sides, palm to palm, fingers interlacing, interlocking, both sides, rotation rubbing of the thumb, both sides, and with clasped fingers, rotation rubbing of the palm, both sides. If you do 5 times each step, it will be like around 20 seconds. Not there.
Okay, so I'll explain about the list as well, okay?
5 times.
3. Okay, I'll explain now. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the steps, okay? And hopefully there'll be some changes in a minute. But so she did it in the right way. I just want to emphasize a couple of points. When I was observing, a couple of people did not do it in the right way. Okay, maybe you are not listening, but this is what we come across. So, okay, so we'll go to the steps and the timing and everything in a minute, okay? So now you know the volume, yeah? So that means palmful, okay? Not like this. Just try, otherwise this will not be 3 mil, I can tell you now, because it will just fall off, okay? So you palm it. So palm has to be like this. And normally if you're not sure, just try to measure it, whatever it is. That's palmful, I think that will be fine, you know what I mean? But don't do like that, okay? Because it will be about 1.5 mil, I don't think it will be more than that. If you're a small lady, or if you're a person, you know what I mean? Then your hand will be small. My hands are very big, you know, abnormally big, so my hands are quite big, so I do it and I have got 3-4 mil. So, and the concentration is important, remember, okay? And then each step, you do it 3 times. And people say we don't, now when you're actually approaching the patient, you're talking, hello, how are you? How is your day? How are you feeling? While you're actually doing that, that's the way you teach it. So say, I don't have time. But as you are approaching the patient, so the way I do it, if I'm a patient, I have my alcohol hands up, and I'm doing, hello, how are you? Okay, if you actually make this as a special effort, then they say, God, I have to do additional things. No. So you say, look, as you are approaching the patient, okay, when you're talking, how are you, how is your day, and blah, blah, whatever it is, it's all done and hands are all dry. Okay, so that's important. So now, this is very interesting, isn't it? This slide, you have seen it. Which is the most contaminated part? Thumbs and fingertips. And the sequence she did right, and the sequence we have in WHO, do you think is right or wrong? Okay, so why thumb? I want you to do one thing. Take your thumb, take your hand out here, do your thumb like that, and try to pick something. It's difficult. Okay, no matter what you do, you know what I mean, you struggle. Right? You need 3-4 fingers to catch the whole thing. With thumb, I can use this one. You always use thumb. And therefore, thumb is the most important part of the hand. It's contaminated because you cannot lift anything. Because I have option of lifting it like that, yeah, or this one. Which one would you prefer? So no matter what you do, this is the reason. You cannot actually do without thumb. So I normally teach, I say, look over here, take your thumb out, and then you start lifting, doing things. You know, it is a struggle, I'm telling you. That's why thumbs are most contaminated, number one. Second thing, you can see no matter what I do, if I'm touching my finger, doing whatever it is, it's always the fingertips, which I'm touching. Now, the problem we see with this one, can you see, we are doing this, we are doing this. These steps comes last. So if you got 1 mil, and we have actually demonstrated that basically if you're using 1 mil or less quantity, 6 and 7 steps, which are the most important one, are missed. Okay? So now we are actually having a meeting, okay, to revise these one, to change the sequence and whatever. I don't know what will be the outcome, okay, so we are discussing how we can do this one. But there are papers we published in this Grand Hygiene Green Book which are sent, in which we are actually, and we have gotten the glove status, can we actually do this step, can we do this, can we do that sort of thing. So, did you see the hand hygiene video on the scrub? Did you observe? It starts with thumbs and the tip of the finger. Okay? So, just watch this space, this will going to be revised. I don't know if it will stay the same or be different, you know, because we are putting our head together to see, because we know that this is a big issue. So I think most likely. So now, coming back to the question, I don't get hung up about the steps, okay? Which sequence you follow, no. If they are covering these two parts, and other bits in any sequence, it doesn't really matter at all, okay? Because the people are very regimental, this step and this step. So if I actually follow this one, and people actually make errors, so let me show you. Most likely the error you are going to see, and which I solved, you know, when some people were doing it. So if you look at the first step, so you take your alcohol hand rub. If I do the first step, yeah, doesn't matter. This is important. The people were doing like this. This is wrong. You have to interlace the finger. The whole idea is that you have to actually get rid of. So this thing has to touch. Your hand must not be fanned. So people do like this. Okay? No. You have to actually cross the finger. And most of the people don't do it. Go and observe it. You think I'm not, you observe it. So just make sure that these are done. And then of course you do this. Your palm. And then your thumb. Right? And these are your fingertips. And then you are done. Okay? Now, these are movements. Now nurses in UK and other people wanted to actually have a wrist as well. That's fine, you can add that part. But that's actually really recommended if you actually believe, especially when you're wearing gloves and removing it. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to show you. Or if you actually believe that your wrist is contaminated. Otherwise, it's not necessary. Okay? So you can add the additional step based on your risk assessment. That's what it is. So we are not saying yes and we are not saying no to that kind of thing. Yeah, I think this is the problem we face, that you need, you see, if you follow this one, by the time you do this one, we have seen that I have basically no alcohol left, okay? And because alcohol is not there, so if I'm doing it, it's basically doing with clean hand. So the question is, if you want to do this one, which is based on the risk assessment that your hands are contaminated, then you make sure that you have enough alcohol to rub this one. Yeah, but you are right. You picked up the right point. Thank you very much. This is right. Yeah. Yes. I think most of the time, you see, if you look at the activity, these areas, I'll show you, because what this actually happens when people don't know how to remove the glove properly. So we are going to do the PPA demonstration, okay? So you'll be glad that I'm going to shut my mouth in a few minutes, because it will be all practical demonstration about what we are going to do, where we don't see people do it in the right way, okay? You may be all perfect, but we'll see. So this steps, as Dr. Shastri has said, this is additional step plus minus just 2 years assessment. Okay, I got. Okay, so. Okay, so watch the space, because hopefully we are targeting 5th of May, the change, okay? 5th of May is a very big day for us, okay? We put a lot of effort into it and all bits and pieces. So watch this step, as I told you, watch the space over there, because we are thinking about it. We are also thinking of reducing the step as well, so there will be change, okay? And if anybody interested, I can email you this paper, to see where the people have done the studies. Okay, so again, very, very quickly, because this all is information available on WHO website. So if you want to 5-component WHO, you need to system change. It has to be across. You have to provide training, education, evaluation, reminder of the workplace, institution. These 5. What happened when you want to do it? These are the 5 to implement it and to sustain it. The problem we find sustainability, isn't it? It's just like habit. After New Year, we put a lot of weight and we say, I'm going for jogging, okay? And you jog for a week or 10 days, and after that, stopped. Hand hygiene is no different. You go over into one particular ward, one area, they will do it, and then suddenly they back off kind of thing. So these are steps that actually direct to sustain it. Sustainability is a big issue, a very 5 moments of hand hygiene. How do you prepare your facility? 5 steps. Okay, and these are the 5. So if you really want to actually embed, yeah, hand hygiene, these are the 5 things you have to do, and there will be loads of tools available. So I think that actually finishes the hand hygiene, and we'll talk of strength precautions. So I think Dr. Shastri is going to do some demonstration of plan for hand hygiene. Yeah.